right, ready to dive deep into learning. Across the lifespan, we've got these notes from a health education course. Week 3, NCM 102W K3-LM.PDF, to be exact. Should be pretty
Oh
interesting.
yeah, definitely a rich topic. Those notes look like a solid framework, I think. For this deep dive, I mean.
So we're basically looking at how learning, well, changes at different ages, right? From like infancy all the way to, the later years. And the big thing is figuring out what teaching strategies actually, work at each of those stages.
Exactly. And I think one of the most interesting things is how heredity and environment like work together to shape how a person learns.
So it's not just about like your genes or whatever.
Right. It's not just nature, it's also nurture, you know? Like
Yeah.
someone might be predisposed to be good at math, but if they never get any encouragement or good teaching, it's like, what's the point?
Yeah, that makes sense. So like with the right environment and support, you could really unlock someone's learning potential.
Exactly. And I think that's pretty powerful. It makes you think about the responsibility we have as educators, parents, even friends, to, create those spaces,
Oh,
spaces that are nurturing and supportive for learning, I mean.
yeah, that's pretty inspiring, actually. It makes you think. So where do we start?
Well, how about at the very beginning? Infancy and toddlerhood. That magical time, from birth to around 2.
Right. Tiny humans like sponges, just soaking it all up. But how do you even start teaching someone who, they can't even talk or walk yet?
That's where the caregivers come in. They're the primary teachers, even if they don't realize it.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, like every interaction, every lullaby, every game of peekaboo, even just, talking to them while you're changing their diaper,
Yeah.
all of it shapes that little brain.
So like those everyday moments are actually building the foundation for learning.
Exactly. Repetition, imitation, engaging all the senses. You think about it, when you sing the same lullaby every night, the baby starts to anticipate what comes next, right? It's creating those neural pathways.
So even something like reading simple picture books can have a big impact.
Oh, absolutely. Especially if you do it consistently. It's not even just about the words, it's about the ritual, the closeness, that repeated exposure to language and visuals. I think some research even suggests this kind of repetition can like actually contribute to long-term learning.
Oh, wow. That makes a lot of sense. It reminds me of those families that have like a special bedtime story they read every single night. It's like a tradition, right? It fosters learning and connection.
Exactly. Those early experiences are so powerful, they really lay the groundwork for future learning. Now, as those little ones grow into preschoolers, things get even more interesting. They start to develop something called egocentric thinking.
Egocentric thinking. That sounds a bit, well, self-centered, doesn't it?
Well, it's not really about being selfish. It's more like their brains haven't quite developed the ability to fully understand other people's perspectives. Like they literally see the world through their own eyes.
So like if a preschooler sees another child crying, they might not get why, because they themselves aren't sad.
Exactly. They might even like offer the crying child their favorite toy, thinking that'll automatically cheer them up because, that's what would work for them. It's really fascinating, actually, to see how their thinking changes.
Okay, I'm starting to get it. But that must make teaching them a bit of a challenge. Like, how do you explain things to someone who, interprets everything so literally?
Patience, definitely. You have to like meet them where they are, use simple language. Repetition is still really important too, as is building trust. And be prepared to answer a lot of why
Oh,
questions.
yeah, definitely. They're little detectives trying to figure out how the whole world works.
Exactly. And their imaginations are like just running wild at this stage. They might actually believe their teddy bear is sick or that, they caused a thunderstorm by being angry.
Wow.
It's this like delicate balance, between acknowledging their feelings and gently guiding them toward a more realistic understanding of the world.
So it's important to remember that their fears and beliefs, however illogical they seem to us, are very real to them.
Absolutely. Reassurance and clear explanations, those are
Uh,
crucial. Like, think about how you'd talk to a child who's afraid of going to the doctor. You wouldn't just dismiss their fear, right? You'd validate it and explain what's going to happen in a way that they can understand.
That makes sense. Wow, we've covered a lot. From those early sensory explorers to these imaginative little beings who see the world so differently, it really shows how important it is to adapt, our teaching approaches to match each stage of development.
Exactly. And as children transition into those school-aged years, roughly, 6 to 12, their thinking undergoes another major shift.
Here's where it gets interesting, right? They start to think more logically.
You got it. They're starting to move away from that egocentric viewpoint, and they're developing a more realistic and objective understanding of the world. They really crave concrete information and start to grasp the concept of cause and effect.
So instead of thinking they caused the thunderstorm, they might start to understand that weather patterns are, like, caused by scientific processes.
Exactly. They're eager to learn how things work and why things happen. Their ability to, categorize and classify information really expands, and they start asking more complex questions.
Okay, so how should teaching strategies adapt to these budding logicians?
Well, now it becomes really important to involve them in the learning process. So instead of just lecturing at them, ask open-ended questions. Encourage critical thinking. Create opportunities for them to experiment and discover things on their own.
It's like you go from being a teacher who just tells to a guide who facilitates.
That's a great way to put it. And of course, clarity is paramount. Use simple language. Avoid jargon. Break down those complex concepts into manageable chunks and observe their reactions, like what sparks their interest, what are they struggling with. You really have to tailor your approach based on that.
So if you're working with school-age children, the key is to encourage their independence and give them the tools to, take charge of their learning.
Exactly. It's all about fostering those lifelong learning skills, right? The skills that'll help them throughout their lives.
We've already come so far, from those early sensory discoveries to the world of preschoolers and their imaginations, and now to logic and reasoning. But things are about to get even more complex, I think, as we enter the, well, often turbulent world of adolescence.
Oh, yes. Adolescence, a period of immense change. Physical, emotional, social. And definitely a unique challenge for, anyone who's teaching or mentoring teenagers.
Yeah, I can imagine. Our notes mention rebellion, peer pressure, and something called imaginary audience. What's that all about?
Imagine you're a teenager and you feel like everyone's watching you, like judging your every move. That's the imaginary audience phenomenon. It comes from that heightened self-awareness and the intense desire to fit in.
So it's like they're constantly on stage worried about what everyone else thinks of them. No wonder they're so self-conscious.
Exactly. And add to that the influence of, peer pressure. Fitting in and becomes everything, sometimes even more important than their own values or beliefs.
It makes sense, but it also sounds a little dangerous, to be honest.
It can be, especially when you think about health behaviors. They might do risky things just to impress their friends or avoid being, I don't know, ostracized or whatever. And statistically, a significant percentage of adolescents face some pretty serious health issues. So reaching them effectively with health education, it's crucial.
That's a sobering thought. But with all those barriers, the rebellion, the peer pressure, the self-consciousness, how do you even break through? How do you make those connections?
Well, first, you have to ditch the lectures and the judgment. Adolescents need to feel heard, respected, understood.
So create a space where they feel safe, where they can open up and be themselves without, fear of being criticized.
Exactly. Building trust is absolutely paramount. They need to know you're on their side, that you genuinely care about their well-being.
Okay, so that rapport is key. But what about the actual teaching methods? How do you engage someone who's bombarded with information and stimulation all the time?
You got to think outside the box, get creative, meet them where they are. Our notes mention that peer-led workshops and support groups can be really effective.
Oh, interesting. So you tap into that peer influence, but you use it to promote, positive behaviors and healthy choices.
Exactly. It's like harnessing the energy of a raging river, and channeling it into something productive.
Love that analogy. So we're not suppressing their energy. We're just guiding it in a positive direction. What else works well with teenagers?
Think interactive, think hands-on, role-playing scenarios, simulations, even games, anything that actively involves them in the learning process.
So instead of just telling them about the dangers of smoking, you might have role-play conversation where they have to resist peer pressure to light up.
Exactly. It lets them practice those decision-making skills in a safe and supportive environment.
Okay, that's pretty cool. And what about technology? It seems like teenagers are glued to their phones and computers these days.
That's true, and it can be a really powerful tool for engagement. Think online platforms, interactive games, social media campaigns. Meet them in their digital world, Deliver health information in a way that's, relevant and easy to access.
So instead of fighting their tech obsession, we can leverage it to promote learning. That's a brilliant strategy. We've come a long way from those early sensory explorers to these, complex young minds navigating a world of intense emotions and like rapid fire information.
It really is a fascinating journey, isn't it? And it highlights how crucial it is to understand the unique characteristics of each stage, to make learning truly effective. But we're not done yet. We're moving into adulthood, a stage often defined by new beginnings, big decisions, and a growing sense of responsibility.
All right, I'm ready to dive into the adult learning landscape. What defines this stage, and how do our teaching approaches need to change? Again,
Welcome back. So we were just talking about teaching adolescents, all those challenges, the rebellion, the peer pressure. It's a lot.
yeah, definitely a unique stage. But like you said, we have to adapt our teaching to meet those needs. No more boring lectures.
Exactly. And as those teenagers become adults, well, our teaching strategies need to evolve again. We usually think of young adulthood as like, what, 18 to 40?
Yeah, something like that.
It's a huge time of like growth and transition.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
New relationships, starting careers, maybe even families. Sounds exciting, but also, I bet, kind of stressful.
Oh, definitely. And when it comes to learning, young adults have this unique set of characteristics. They're pretty autonomous,
Yeah.
and self-directed. Like they want to be in charge of their own learning.
So they're not just passively absorbing information anymore. They're actually going out and like seeking out knowledge that, aligns with their goals.
Exactly. They're driven by this desire to improve their lives, maybe get ahead in their careers, or even, make a difference in the world. They're using their own experiences and they want practical knowledge, stuff they can use right away.
Okay, so it's less about memorizing facts and more about like skills they can actually apply. So how do we, as educators or even just friends and family, how do we tap into that and support their learning?
Well, the first thing is to recognize their autonomy, right? Respect that they want to be self-directed. So instead of lecturing at them, we should be creating opportunities for them to, I don't know, explore, experiment, discover on their own.
So it's about empowering them, like giving them the tools to take control of their own learning. What else should we keep in mind?
Relevance is huge. We need to make sure that the information we're giving them actually connects to their lives, their interests, their goals.
Otherwise, it's just going in one ear and out the other, right?
Exactly. And it's so important to give them chances to like actually apply what they're learning.
So instead of just talking about financial planning, you might have them like actually create a budget based on their own income and expenses.
Exactly. Hands-on activities, simulations, real-world projects, it makes learning so much more engaging.
Okay, I'm seeing a pattern here.
Hmm.
Meet them where they are, respect their autonomy, and make the learning relevant. Make it applicable to their lives.
You got it. And don't forget about feedback and support. Young adults need to know that, their efforts are appreciated, that there are people and resources to help them succeed.
So create a learning environment that's challenging, but also supportive, where they feel okay taking risks and asking for help when they need it.
Exactly. Like imagine a mentorship program where young professionals can get advice from, more experienced people in their field. It's that perfect mix of support and challenge.
That's a great example. Now, our notes also mentioned that this stage, young adulthood, can be pretty stressful.
Oh, for sure. New jobs, relationships, maybe kids. It's a lot to handle.
Right. So it's important to be like sensitive to that.
Yeah.
And maybe even offer them some strategies for managing stress.
Absolutely. Incorporating stress management techniques into like learning programs or even just having open conversations about the challenges they're facing, it can make a big difference.
It's like acknowledging that their personal lives and their, learning journeys are connected. If they're super stressed out, it's going to be hard to focus on learning.
Exactly. And speaking of feeling overwhelmed, let's move on to the next stage of adulthood. Middle age. It's usually between 40 and 65, and it brings like a whole new set of experiences and challenges.
Okay, what defines this stage of learning? What makes it unique?
Well, middle-aged adults are often, at the top of their game professionally. They've got all this knowledge and experience, and they're starting to think about like their legacy.
So they're reflecting on what they've accomplished, but also looking ahead to what they still want to do.
Exactly. And when it comes to learning, they're often driven by this desire to like make a real contribution
Yeah.
to their families, their communities, even society as a whole.
So it's not just about themselves anymore. It's about giving back and making a difference.
Exactly. They might want to share their expertise, mentor younger people, or, I don't know, support a cause they care about. But it's important to remember that this stage has its own challenges too. Stress can be a big factor, with demanding careers, maybe taking care of aging parents or dealing with their own health issues.
Yeah, it sounds like they're juggling a lot. So how do we create a learning environment that's, supportive, one that takes all of that into account?
Well, first of all, we need to acknowledge their experiences,
Right.
right? And the pressures they're facing. So instead of making assumptions, we should listen to their concerns, try to understand their point of view, and then tailor our approach based on that.
So meet them where they are, literally and figuratively.
Exactly. And we need to address their concerns about, health and aging. Give them accurate information about chronic illnesses, stress management, healthy lifestyle choices, all of that.
Okay, so we're acknowledging the realities of this stage and giving them the tools they need to navigate it. What about teaching methods? Are there any specific approaches that work well with middle-aged adults?
Well, they've got all this life experience and a strong sense of self, so they usually prefer interactive and participatory learning.
So less lecturing and more like discussions, problem solving, real world applications.
Exactly. Imagine a workshop on retirement planning where people can share their worries, brainstorm ideas, and come up with personalized plans.
That's a great example. It's all about collaboration, sharing experiences and wisdom.
Exactly. And let's not forget, these are busy people, so we need to make learning convenient, easy to access.
Right. So maybe offering flexible schedules, online resources, even like bite-sized learning modules that fit into their busy lives.
Precisely. Respect their time and acknowledge that they have a lot going on.
Okay, so we're on to the last part of our deep dive, right?
Right.
Older adulthood. I'm actually really interested to see what we can learn about supporting learning in this stage.
Yeah, it's a stage that I think often gets overlooked,
Mm.
but there's so much potential there, I mean, older adulthood, usually we're talking 65 and up, but it's a time when people have this incredible wealth of experience, wisdom, all that.
Right. It's like a whole lifetime of stuff to draw on.
Yeah.
That must really shape how they approach learning, huh?
Definitely. But along with that experience comes, well, a different set of needs. We have to be aware of things like potential physical changes, cognitive changes, like their senses might not be as sharp, their motor skills, maybe some fatigue. And of course, there are social and emotional adjustments that can come with aging, too.
So it sounds like we really need to be thoughtful about how we teach, like really tailor our strategy. I remember our notes mentioned something called, was it Jiragogy?
Yes, gerogogy. It's basically the art and science of teaching older adults. And it recognizes that, learning in later life, it's not just about tweaking the methods we use for younger people. It's a whole different ballgame.
Okay, so we need to shift our perspective. So what are some of the key things to keep in mind with Jiragogy?
Well, the biggest thing, honestly, is fighting ageism. It's everywhere, and it's so damaging. We need to challenge those negative stereotypes, recognize that people can keep learning and growing throughout their lives.
Yeah, that's huge. It's about seeing older adults as like capable, right? People who want to learn, people who still have things to contribute, not just people who are, declining.
Exactly. So how do we create that positive environment? Well, understanding individual needs is key. Just like with any other age group, we can't just assume things. What motivates them to learn? What challenges are they dealing with? What are their priorities, their concerns?
So taking the time to really listen to their stories, understand where they're coming from.
Yeah, and building trust is so important here. Older adults might have had bad experiences with, I don't know, healthcare systems, education systems. They might be hesitant to ask questions or admit if they don't get something. So that rapport, that safe space for communication, it's essential.
I remember our notes also mentioned that reminiscing can be a really good way to connect with older adults.
It's amazing how well that works. Encourage them to share their life stories, their experiences, their perspectives. It not only helps build that trust, but it also gives us so much insight into their values, their strengths, even the challenges they've overcome.
Wow. So it's like we're tapping into this well of wisdom, and that can really benefit everyone, right? Not just the older adult, but everyone involved in the learning process.
Yeah.
Okay, so what about some practical teaching tips? How do we adapt our methods to like accommodate physical changes, cognitive changes, all that?
The learning environment itself is important. It needs to be comfortable, accessible, make sure there's enough light, use clear and simple language, give them plenty of breaks, and it's helpful to present information in different ways. Visual aids, handouts, even recordings, That way you can cater to different learning styles and preferences.
So being flexible, adaptable, and understanding that learning might take a bit longer, but it's still totally possible.
Exactly. Patience and encouragement, those are key. And remember, even small improvements in their knowledge or skills, those can have a huge impact. on their quality of life, their independence, their well-being.
This has been incredible. I mean, we've really gone deep into learning across the lifespan, from those first discoveries as babies all the way to, the wisdom and resilience of older adulthood. We've seen how learning changes and adapts at every stage.
And we've learned that there's no one-size-fits-all approach to teaching, right? It's all about understanding individual needs, adapting our methods, and creating an environment that's supportive, that's engaging, that really empowers people to learn and grow throughout their lives, no matter what age they are.
We've only just scratched the surface, but I hope this deep dive has made you curious, inspired you to keep exploring this fascinating world of learning, no matter who you are or where you are in life. Thanks for joining us.
Okay.